ladies and gentlemen. For 23 years, this has been the best-kept secret here on planet Earth. You are now privileged to become our first and last line of defense for all people, near and far. It's time for you to step forward to the future. You are chosen because you are the best, the brightest, and the bravest individuals our nation has ever come to recognize. Welcome to Stargate Command. You will risk your lives every day in a way more dangerous and fantastic than any of us could have ever dreamed. Understand that I represent every person of this great nation when I salute your ongoing heroic spirit. Godspeed.
I'm not saying you're deformed. I'm asking, is anybody deformed?
there a church anywhere around here? I'm going to butt in.
Sorry.
Is anyone in
Look,
this
if
village
anybody else
before?
wants to jump in,
I just did.
Oh, that's the wrong thing.
That's not live.
Sorry.
Oh, wait, that is live. You just done it wrong.
Hello? That's the other scene. Great start, everyone. Hello. Hopefully you can hear everything.
Have you done it right this time?
I think I've done it right.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. Hopefully you can all hear us. And I will say right now... Oh, not the names! Oh, you know, honestly, I'm TheInfinaty, and I'm joined today by TheInfinaty.
Hi, it's me. Also him. This is very on topic for Mutants and Masterminds, though.
There you go.
You spelled my name wrong, thanks.
Did I? Oh yeah, I did. Sorry. Oh, God. Shall I just... Oh, you know what?
Do you want to start again?
Right, enough of that. We're right now. Yes, spelling's right. The stream title is done on purpose, so stop telling me that it's wrong. It's right. It's a joke.
You sure it's not just an excuse?
Maybe. It's staying now, anyway. Welcome. Seeing as you're all complaining about that and not about the lack of hearing, so I'm assuming it's fine. Welcome. If you don't know what this is... Yeah, it really is. If you don't know what this is a Q&A session for Mutants and Masterminds. Somebody keeps saying it wrong, so I never remember. I never remember what
it's you.
Is.
You're the one who keeps saying it
No,
wrong.
it's not me. I'm joined today by Kadari. Now, there's one good reason why Kadari's here. He knows things.
I have the intelligence modifier.
He rolled a natural 20 when rolling his intelligence on these sort of games. I'm pretty new. I've played a few games, but Kadari here is superior to my knowledge. And he knows Mutants and Masterminds better than I do. And if you were watching the last episode 2, part 1, that was just shy of 3 weeks ago, you probably may have noticed, if you know about Mutants and Masterminds, that I was doing a few things wrong. So we decided that it was probably best to do a little Q&A session to bash out the rules and make sure that not only I am doing things right, but to make sure that everybody understands this system, because it is based on, I should say, it is based on Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, but it has been tweaked, and there's a few things that are a bit different, and there's one thing that's and there's one thing that's very different to a lot of tabletop role-playing games
That you've played.
that I've played. That most of you will play. See, this is the thing. He has played so many games, right? Dungeons and Dragons is the unusual one.
Sorry, I just read Aldo's comments in chat. I had no idea there were mistakes, but Kadari kept pointing them out. Yeah.
This is why he's here, because he picks up on the mistakes.
We're not answering the cooking a chicken question, though.
Probably.
We've done the math.
Yeah.
We've done the math. We're not answering it on stream.
Yeah, so Mutants and Masterminds is a game that you if you're running it as the GM, be prepared for a lot of math, because a lot of it is math based. It's calculating things. Although, if you're the GM and you're running the game, you can just go, I'm not doing all of that, and we're just going to run it as I say, which is what I did. But then apparently everyone hated it. So we're here to learn the rules today. If you have any questions, pop them in chat, and we will try and go through as many as we can.
We'll be keeping track of questions that aren't about slapping chickens, so stick them in chat and we'll get around to them when we do.
I'll just...
We're not answering the chicken question, though.
What I'll do now is, for those who are actually interested, I will just quickly set up a points reward system where you could ask a question, and then it'll keep a track on us for us. So
that works better than my method.
That way I don't have to remember whose questions we've done. So yeah, that'll do. Sure, create. So now there's a question down there somewhere. So yeah, if you've got a question, I think I've done it twice. Have I done it twice?
I only see it once.
No, it's only done once. It's just appearing twice for some reason on my thing. So if you've got a question, go down to your action points, spend a Q&A, type in your question, and when we get round to it, we will answer it, and I will tick it off so we know we've done it. Sounds good? Great. Test question, yes. This is where we now get spammed with crap, isn't it? Test question, please ignore. Yes, we've done that. How much can be done when using hero points? Right, well, okay, we'll get to that. So we're going to start with the basics. The basics. So,
that's pretty.
If anyone's interested in Mutants and Masterminds, we're not going to explain everything. We're only here for probably about an hour. But we're going to try and explain the basic mechanics, things that make it different, and then we're going to spend probably a good section of today's Q&A talking about combat, because combat is where we really made a mess of it. And it's a bit trickier combat in Mutants and Masterminds, because it's not all number-based. I thought none of it was number-based, but apparently some of it is number-based, but not all of it's number-based. So
tricky for RPG players, it's very easy for Wargames players.
The first thing that's a bit different with Mutants and Masterminds to a lot of other games is that there isn't really a leveling system. So the way Mutants and Mastermind works is you have a power rating, and your power rating is set by whoever's running the game, and there's a scale, and powers go from 0 to 20. Now your average humans your average humans will not go above a power rating of level 5. Anything above 5 you class as a mutant, and I believe anything like 15 or plus you're talking god tier, you're talking legendaries, and eventually level 20 you're talking, not to say his name, but you're probably talking the likes of Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth, universe eaters. So in Mutants and Masterminds, you start off with a set level, and you're not going to move far from that level throughout a campaign. And that's the other thing, is there isn't really a campaign. Mutants and Masterminds is actually done as episodes, and it's been built as episodes. Now, what I'm doing on Infinite Monkey Tales is I'm actually doing a series of episodes to make a campaign and have an underlying story. So it is a campaign, but it's not a campaign. Yes?
A campaign in the traditional role-playing sense implies character development. It implies leveling up of characters throughout the course of a campaign. Mutants and Masterminds doesn't really handle leveling up of characters. You don't move between power levels.
Yeah. But
it's a campaign.
Yeah, but this I'm doing it as I'm calling it a campaign because I am having character development, because that's one thing you'll notice watching it here, is that there is an underlying story that will go through every episode, from one episode to another. Each episode will have its own little storyline sort of thing, but there is an underlying story which will progress as we do more and more episodes.
It's a story arc.
Yeah. Character development, not so much. So in Mutants and Masterminds, once you've created your character, that's pretty much it. It's not like Dungeons and Dragons where you level up and you gain access to more powers and everything. Mutants and Masterminds, you pretty much set your power and that's it. Just like in the actual comic book world, Superman has always been Superman. He doesn't change. You know, certain episodes you would discover he might have a new power. Very rarely, but ultimately Superman is Superman. And that's how Mutants and Mastermind works. Once you've created a character, that's pretty much your character. But you can change your character. You can roll a different mutant, and you can try out different powers, different archetypes and everything. So there is that. So for most of the heroes in my campaign, all the heroes are pretty much level 10. Now, you might be wondering, what does that mean? Well, let's show you. This is a character sheet. Now, you've probably never seen this on stream before, but this is the character sheets that we use in Mutants and Masterminds, and this is a character sheet for a police officer, so an NPC. Now, you can see straight away on the screen here, we've got... you can't see my mouse, so that's going to be great, isn't it? Bear with me. Let me just capture that.
You need one of them long pointer ones that university professors use.
There you go, you can see my mouse now. So here you've got power level. So this city cop is power level 4. And the power level gives you points to spend. So being level 4, you get a maximum of 60 points. Now this is an interesting thing. You don't have to spend all your points. But you cannot go over. So you have 60 points at level 4 to spend, and you can put them in anything that you can see here on the sheet. You know, you've got your classics, your strength, your agility, your fighting, awareness, stamina, dexterity, intellect, and presence. Probably one or two more there than the usual collection, but they're the standards. Then you've got your normal skills section, which I think most of you will be familiar on. You know, acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, persuasion, sleight of hand, stealth, technology, treatment, vehicles. They're the basic skills in Mutants and Masterminds. There is ranged combat skills, there is close combat skills, and there is expertise. Now, the way the point system works is that if you spend 2 levels in anything, you are at the equivalent of, say, a professional in that degree. So say if you put 2 points into strength, you're basically saying you're like a heavyweight lifter sort of thing. 3 points is defined as an athlete. So you would, if you weren't a mutant, you're saying if you've got 3 points in something, that you are essentially the best of the best sort of thing. And then beyond 3 points is the supernatural level. And vice versa, you can go the other way. So zero is your person who's probably sat at home, like us who sit at home and play games. Our strength is probably 0.
Going right into me there.
Kadari's intellect is probably 2 or 3, right?
But that doesn't sound right.
but our strengths are probably 0 or 1. But you can go minus. Now, the most you can go minus is -5 on anything, that is. So if you decide, your character may be a mutant hero, you can go -5. And by doing that, you actually gain those points back. So this section here being your main stats, any minus you get there, you actually get those points back to spend. So you've got that points there to spend on your main skills. You've got points on your actual ability skills. You've then got defensive skills, dodge, parry, fortitude, toughness and will. And then the other things that you've got points to spend on is your actual powers, advantages, and equipment. And this is where Mutants and Masterminds is very good at what it does. There is no power that you can think of that does not work with Mutants and Masterminds. You can decide that, in our campaign, Angie's character literally shoots a tombstone out of her hand. That's doable.
And impressive.
It's very original as well. It's brilliant. But that's how Mutants and Masterminds works. You can literally do whatever you want as a power. Whatever you can think of in your mind as what your superpower is, Mutants and Masterminds can break it down. And the system's a little complex to accommodate for that, but at the same time it's quite simple. And one of the ways it very quickly overrules a lot of that is that basically any sort of like fire blast or electric bolt or everything, it's all classed as one ability, and that's damage, because it's essentially your powers are defined by their effect, not what they are, but what they actually do. So if your power causes damage, that's how that power is defined, and you spend your points to define how good of a power it is. Now I should say these sheets were based off one that you could go and access on Roll20. However, the one that you now get on Roll20, the default for Mutants and Mastermind, has been updated. It's very similar to this, but we've actually kiboshed this character sheet to work for us. I love kibosh.
It's a good word.
It's a great
I like
word.
it.
I like kiboshing things. Don't take that out of context.
It's too late. It's on the internet now.
So these sheets, unfortunately, they are a little custom tailor-made to us, and we are working on updating them even further for more of our campaign, because essentially it's just to make it more understandable for a lot of people. And one of the things that we've done on this sheet is we've added in an offense section where we can actually put in the powers, and it actually gives you the stats. And if you were watching on any of the episodes where we had combat, you would have seen, well, the roles that get presented. So that's what we've done to kind of make the game a little bit easier for the players, because, like I said, Mutants and Masterminds, it's a great concept and everything. It can come across as ever so slightly confusing. Thank you, Jade, for that subscription. I'm sorry that the overlay wasn't right and we couldn't see that, but thank you very much for your subscription. Hope you're doing well, Jade. So that's a very basic rundown of your character creation. You're told your power level, and you spend points, and you choose your powers. And that to some degree is probably, a lot of you are probably sitting there thinking that that's very similar to any other tabletop role-playing game. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's one of them. All tabletop role-playing games are very similar one way or another. Yeah. So, mechanic-wise, I think that's the basics covered. Unless Kadari has anything else he thinks that we should cover in the basics.
No, I think we're good here. I mean, I suppose the other thing to discuss is how power ranks work, which isn't something you can display off a City Cop sheet. So,
yeah.
On a hero sheet, you'd see power ranks and how powers are calculated, if you want to go into that.
So we'll just quickly pull in Pangolin's character sheet here, so you can all see. So we go into the power section for Pangolin. This is where all of his powers are broken down. So, and each power, like I said, are defined by the effect that they create. So, for example, for Pangolin, his first power is Scaled Form, and this is an enhanced trait effect, because the overall effect of his Scaled Form enhances his traits. So when he's in a scaled form, it increases his agility 8 and strength 8, which costs him 16 points. And being level 10, he has 150 points. He's currently got 151 because the ruling on our campaign that we're doing is I will give bonus points as we progress through campaigns. So the more episodes you do, I'll give you a few extra little points, which you can usually spend on a little gimmicky sort of thing.
Which Pangolin hasn't spent yet.
Which Pangolin hasn't spent? He might save that up and spend it on something later.
He might have forgotten that it was there, but we won't discuss that.
It was there. So the scaled form, when it's activated, of course, he gets enhanced agility 8 and strength. He gets an immunity at level 2 for critical hits, and he has powerlifting 3. And some of you will probably be like, what? These are all extra bits, essentially, little effects. If you think of it, basically, I'm going to get corrected wrong here because I'm probably saying a load of rubbish. But it takes a lot of the elements out of Dungeons and Dragons, powers, abilities, traits and everything, all the little gimmicky bits that you have. Rather than it giving you a name and then what that does, it literally has taken all those gimmicky bits and just put them in a list for you to select from. So rather than you picking, improved initiative or something, you literally can just say, I want to put +4 on initiative. And the more points you spend on that, the higher the plus is. So, at the moment he's got, for a Pangolin, it's got agility and strength 8. If he puts more points into that, you increase that agility and strength to whatever you want. Another ability Pangolin's got is ability to foot stomp. And of course the foot stomp, the overall effect of the foot stomp is it causes damage. And so you can see here, damage is 1 point per rank. He's defined a line area, so the foot stomp affects in a line. Damage 11, so it causes 11 levels worth of damage. And Pangolin and target must be in contact with the same surface -1. So that's a feature called a condition. So you can choose with your powers, and it's your choice, to limit your power. To basically say, well, it only works if this condition works. And if your GM is happy that that is essentially a valid condition and it is limiting, then essentially you can have a minus point cost on that ability because you've decided to limit it. Again, like Angie's character, she can only create tombstones if there is a source of stone near her. So she can't, if she was in a barren desert, she wouldn't be able to create any stones or anything. But if she decided, if she was in a concrete surrounding like in a city, she is able to do that. So that has made it cheaper for her to put points in because she's decided it's a limited feature. And there's stone anywhere, so unless the mutants, this campaign ever goes to space, she's pretty much always going to be able to create a stone out of anywhere, sort of thing. So and that's powers. Equipment. Pangolin doesn't have any equipment, but for anyone who watched episode 2, Mimar's character Buckley, her equipment is her butler. So the butler character that she has that goes around with her is classed as a minion, and that is part of her character's equipment. And one of the interesting things about equipment on Mutants and Masterminds is that no matter what happens during the episode, at the end of the episode, everything is returned to you. So for Brooklyn's character, she has a butler. Now, if the butler gets killed off during the episode, that is possible, that can happen. But at the end of the episode, he comes back. Usually with minions, it's another minion or a clone or something like that. But yeah, she gets that back. And for, say, Angie's character, she has a hearse and a funeral home, so whatever happens in the story, when she starts the next episode, she has those items yet again. So you don't have to do it as a one-time cost sort of thing, and then that's it, the points are gone if you lose it, you always get it back. And then your advantages are quite simple. They're basically your feats out of Dungeons and Dragons. And there's a long list of different advantages, and they all cost 1 point each. So it's usually best, well, my advice would be, always pick up a couple of feats that you think were actually going to be helpful. So I think that covers the basics. I think that covers we're not going to go into full detail. If you do want to go into full detail, I would highly suggest that you go pick up... My thing's moved again. How is it moving? I highly suggest you go pick up the Mutants and Masterminds Deluxe Heroes Handbook. And if anyone's interested, we are using the 3rd edition. Oops, that's gone. Oop, nope. It doesn't actually say it on that cover. But this is 3rd edition. So, yeah.
It's on the inside front cover.
Oh, yeah, there you go. 3rd edition. So if you want to learn more about the basics and everything, either join our Discord and drop in yourself into the Mutants and Masterminds chat by signing up to Mutants and Masterminds, and you can ask us questions. I am more than happy to explain all of this to people. So yeah, if you're interested more in the Mutants and Masterminds, head on over to our Discord, and we can, I'll answer. Well, Kadaru will probably answer your questions. I'll probably just go, yes, that's a good question.
I'll be asked to answer your questions by others.
Yeah. So that's the basics in a gist. So what we're going to move on to now is something that's a bit different. A little feature that's ever so slightly different, and I'm not going to put my foot in it and say that this is, because I have a feeling this isn't a unique thing for Mutants and Masterminds.
True. We'll continue.
I don't think anything of this is it? There'll be a game out there somewhere that's like it.
The name is unique.
Yeah, the name and the pictures are unique. Hero points.
For everything else, there's Exalted.
Oh, God. Yeah. Right, let's
Well, there's somebody in chat who's waiting for me to call out Exalted, so...
Who's waiting for you to call out Exalted?
A friend who thinks Exalted is better than Mutants and Masterminds.
Oh,
and I know she'll be listening for it, so...
Ooh, I don't know. I've never played Exalted, so I couldn't tell you if it is or if it isn't. Yeah. Bear with me, I'm just getting to the trying to find the page in the handbook for this next section. I did bookmark it, but my bookmarks have also disappeared. Everything's disappearing tonight.
Everything's going wrong.
I thought it was early on in the book, but apparently it's not.
Well, extra effort, it's 19.
No hero points.
It's 20. It's after extra effort. Because... as we previously discussed, that basically the same thing.
Oh, but there's not a table. There's not a nice table. Do I have a nice table on Roll20?
Probably not.
I should do. Yeah, I do. There you go.
Well, that's convenient.
I don't know if you have access to that. But I do.
I haven't looked.
Oh god, now I've got to move this so that chat can actually read it. So we are now talking...
What do?
Hero points. Look at that. Dead easy transitions there. Hero points. A special feature of Mutants and Masterminds that I would say is a bit of an underused feature. So... hero points are basically a scoring system for how well you're doing RP. And the way this works is when you create your character, you choose a selection from complications and
I've also forgotten, but yes. Good complications. I'm looking.
Good complications. Motivations, that's the one.
I mean, motivations are complications.
Yeah.
By definition. There are positive and negative complications.
So you choose a couple of motivations and a couple of complications for your character. Now, if you role play them, you gain, at your GM's discretion, hero points. So if your complication is that your hero is all about the patriarch, not patriarch, he's very patriotic.
Patriotism.
Patriotism.
If you're Captain America.
Yeah, if you're Captain America.
Or Captain Britain.
Or Captain
We're
Britain.
not picky.
If you role play that very well, and especially in circumstances where you role play it and it disadvantages the story for you because you're role playing it, at your GM's discretion, he can give you a hero point. Now, by default, at the start of every episode, you gain 1 hero point just to start with. And these are the ways that you can spend your hero point. So you can edit a scene. So I think Mark did this in episode 1. There was a moment when they were trying to put out a fire, and he edited the scene by spending his hero points to present a fire extinguisher to himself. So again, the way edit scenes is if there's something that you need for whatever reason, you can basically say, it's there, sort of thing. If there's a locked door, you can say, oh, there's a key on the wall. This is all to the GM's discretion. So he might turn around and go, no, the key is not on that wall. But he may be forgiving, and you may put it somewhere else. Again, the example is yes, Mark found the fire extinguisher, but there was a downside to it. It was empty. So, you're not always guaranteed what you want with edit the scene, but it's a cool little feature that might help in certain circumstances.
There was a question from chat of how much you can edit with edit scene, and it's GM discretion, but the guidelines in the book are that this is intended to give players input into the story and allow you a chance to succeed, but it's not intended to replace planning and considering how to approach a situation. You can't use edit scene to create a door where there wasn't a door, for example, just because you don't have any ideas of how else to get through a wall. You can't create a door. A fire extinguisher is something that logically would have been in the building, and it's fair logical to edit scene that, but you couldn't edit scene snorkeling gear if you were stuck in a flooding base, for example.
Yeah.
Unless your GM really wanted that to happen.
It could be.
I don't need to breathe it, no.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Your GM probably does this without most players knowing. Will edit the scene, especially if your party's gone past a certain key point and they've missed the information. Your GM should, in theory, try and move that in front of you so that you will get that certain thing. But edit the scene, yeah. It's like it's up to your GM discretion. If you walk into a room of bad guys, you can't, unless your GM really goes for it, you couldn't just say, I'm going to edit a scene, a giant hole opens up and swallows them all whole.
Have a power for that.
You might have a power for that, but you couldn't edit the scene for that, and,
Yeah.
It's within reason. And there isn't a defined limit in the rules. It is, as it says right there, GM has veto power. So regardless of whether it be realistic, I could have said, no, there isn't a fire extinguisher. It's one of them. You can't ruin the story. End of. Your GM's not going to let you ruin the story. What he might let you do is give yourself a little helpful advantage, maybe a clue. If you're stuck on what you need to do in that particular episode, you can use edit a scene to maybe get that information.
That would be inspiration, which is further down.
Or inspiration. But if there was, if you were stuck on a part of the episode where you had to progress a certain thing and you knew that you had to go all the way back and get something, you could probably edit the scene to basically go, look, we know we're probably meant to go and get this key from 10 rooms down there where we were, but can we just edit the scene and say that the door's actually not locked? Sort of thing. And again, each GM discretion. So there isn't a hard limit to that. So
similar related discussion is, you can't edit scene to remove damage or to alter powers, but you can remove damage using recover for a hero point. Yes. Recover has a specific set of rules that allows you to reduce or remove damage or afflictions. And if you want your powers to work differently, you can use extra effort to stunt your powers, which you probably shouldn't do because it'll involve a lot of maths, but these are things that Edit Scene doesn't handle, but that other tools within the system can handle.
Yeah.
Edit Scene isn't your workaround for everything.
No. And we'll get to extra effort in a second.
Yes.
Next on the hero point list, we've got heroic feat. So gain the benefits of one rank of an advantage you don't already have. So this is where, say, you're in a specific section where that advantage that you thought about getting, but you decided not to because you didn't think you'd ever need it, and you decide, actually, I might need this. You can spend your hero point to gain it. And this overrides the point system. So even if you're capped out at your 150 points, spending this, you still get the feat. You don't have to worry about the points on that until the end of your next turn. Again, it's one of them. It's more for in combat, that, but I suppose it would be up to your GM's discretion to basically say, if you're not in combat, if there was a reason you were using a feat outside of combat, where the boundaries would lie on that. But that's a pretty simple one. Improved roll. Now this is an interesting one that's not been used quite well. Re-roll any die roll, and you can take the better of two rolls, and if both rolls are less than 10, if on the results 1 to 10 on a second roll, add 10 to the result. So if you roll a 14 and then on your second roll you roll a 4, you can get a 10 added onto that and it's a 14. So if you roll a 5 and then you roll a 5, you've actually got a 15. So you're always guaranteed a plus 10 roll on doing this. An 11 or higher remains as it is. So if your second roll is 11, like I said, you're guaranteed a plus 10. And you cannot spend a hero point to make the GM or other players re-roll. So this is an interesting one. It's on you. It's just for you. And you can do this after you've rolled, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's the definition of re-rolling. You have to roll to re-roll.
Yeah, so unlike some mechanics in games where they usually have to declare this beforehand, like advantage and everything, no, this is, if you roll crap, you can basically go, I'm going to re-roll, and you gain at least 10 then on your next roll. So if you roll a natural 1, probably always best to, if you've got a spare hero point, to say, I'm going to improve that roll. Inspiration, very similar to inspiration on any other TTRPG. If you're not sure what you're supposed to do, and your GM's being an arse and he isn't, telling you directly because that breaks the immersion, you can spend it to get inspiration, and he'll again, it's to the discretion of your GM. He'll give you information. But it says it should be worth a hero point. You'll never know if it is or if it isn't. That's where you're just going to have to trust your GM, sort of thing. But you'd like to think that GMs are going to pretty much give you the information that you need to actually progress, because otherwise it's a boring story for everyone.
Yep.
Instant counter pretty much says what it says on the tin. Can you basically instantly counter any effect that's been used?
Countering is something we haven't really gone into because it's never come up in our game so far. But countering is what you'd see in comic books when a fire hero fights a water villain, for example.
Yeah.
The fire hero sends a fire blast, the water villain deflects it with water blast. This can be done in combat normally if you ready an action to do it, in the same way that you'd counterspell in 5e, for example. Instant counter just allows you to call that out when you need to. You still need to be able to counter the opponent. You still need a power that would counter their power. Instant counter just lets you do that without having readied the action beforehand.
Yeah. But very self-explanatory there on that one. And then finally, for your hero points, you've got recover. So allows you to immediately, without taking any action, remove dazed, fatigued or stunned condition, or convert an exhausted condition into fatigue condition, or use extra effort without suffering fatigue. And we'll get on to extra effort in 2 seconds. So basically, the way Mutants and Masterminds works that's probably a bit different to the way a lot of you are used to tabletop role-playing games work. There's no health. There's no health bar, there is no HP, and there isn't like a shield or anything like that. It's done by conditions. So your health is essentially assessed by how many conditions you've got stacked on yourself. And certain conditions will have a negative effect on you. So, for example, fatigue basically means you're hindered, and hindered means you move at -1 speed rank. So, it slows you down, sort of thing. In combat, you gain, when I find it on my list, you gain a thing in combat when you get hit. Gadari!
Get a thing in combat when you get hit, yes. Injuries is not a defined rule in the book. Injuries is a defined rule in the character sheet.
Yes.
It's the way the character sheet handles something that's considered in the book as repeated toughness checks.
Yes. So in combat, when you get hit, you gain an injury. And the more injuries you get, you gain a negative on your toughness rolls, which is your essential, your blocking, your armor. And eventually, the way it works is, and we'll get onto this fully in combat in a minute anyway, is you get you have successes, and eventually if your damage is so much compared to what you're rolling, you get KO'd. But yeah, so the way health works in this is it's all about conditions and injuries. So your character doesn't necessarily have a health bar, but they just gain conditions and eventually they get knocked out. Now in Mutants and Masterminds, death is not really a thing, but it is if you want it to be. So because it's comic booky sort of thing, and it is very Marvel-y sort of thing. You don't tend to see people die in Mutants and Masterminds, but it is up to the GM discretion. So there's no saving rolls if you're incapacitated. You're just KO'd, and you wake up after a certain time slot. But it is there to basically say once you're KO'd, if somebody wanted to, they could walk up and snap your neck. So death is a thing in Mutants and Masterminds. But you can use recover to essentially get rid of certain conditions. So these conditions do affect certain things that you're doing. So being dazed, you only get one single standard action. If you are fatigued, you are hindered, and you will recover after 1 hour rest. And like I said, hindered, you move at -1 speed. And a stunt or any general stunned condition where you just can't take actions whatsoever. So if you're stunned, you're out of the game pretty much, and until you recover. And that's hero points. So the way we're working on our campaign, or the way I've decided we're working on our campaign, should I say, is hero points. According to the rules, you should gain hero points after you do something heroic sort of thing, or you do something very RP based, rather than break immersion. Because personally, I think it's a bit awkward when you do if somebody's just done an amazing role-playing section to go, well done, you get a point for that. I think that personally, I think that's a bit. It might break the immersion. So the way we're doing it on our campaign is if somebody role-plays really well in an episode, they will gain their points for the next episode that they're in. So they'll start the next episode at 2, 3, 4 points. Interesting thing about hero points is they do not stay with you forever. If you don't spend it by the end of your episode, they're gone. So
take some risk, you might earn more hero points.
Yeah, so like I said, you always get 1 hero point at the start of the game, so it's probably good to make sure that you use it at some point. Otherwise, it's a waste. You're not saving that point, and you won't start the next episode with 2. You only ever get that one. And that's hero points.
Question from the chat.
Question from the chat. For instant counter, if I was telekinetic-based hero, would an example be that I spend hero point to block an attack by grabbing an object with telekinesis out of my turn?
I had the page on countering effects 1 second ago. I was just going to tell you so you could put it on stream. But then I lost it, so give me a second.
We will...
148. Top half of 148.
Let's have a look. How countering works. Countering. To counter an effect, you must take a ready action. If doing so, you wait to complete your action. You must be able to use the readied effect as a standard action. If opponent attempts to use your power, I genuinely think that wouldn't work with telekinesis, because it
would, because telekinesis is a power just like anything else.
Yes,
it's a control power. Yeah, it's move object. Move object is a power.
Oh right.
You're countering an effect with the power of move object. It's
I thought he meant physically go and pick up the item.
No. I mean, if you want to physically pick up the item, it's a strength check, but...
Yeah.
No, any countering effect, provided you can argue with your GM that it's possible, is an opposed check.
Yeah.
So, you roll d20 plus your ranks in move object, in this case. And your opponent rolls d20 plus their ranks in throw object, or whatever they're doing, fire blast.
Yep.
And we see how the dice come out, pretty much. The only difference with hero points is that hero points let you do that at will, essentially, rather than having readied it beforehand.
Yeah. So your hero points are basically I should have done that, but I didn't, so I'm going to spend a hero point and say I did. In a nutshell. So if you could have normally counted if you'd prepared, that all it does is it doesn't give you any extra ability to be able to counter. It's literally just saying you don't have to prepare it. You can just instantly counter. You're still defined by the rules of countering. So you have to have, like as Kadari said, you have to have something to argue how it would be countered. So if someone's throwing fire at you, if you have an ice blast, you can argue that counter. If someone's throwing fire at you, it would be very difficult to say I'm going to counter that by throwing fire back.
Fight fire with fire.
We're not going to get into that, but yeah, it's something or
they're
throwing fire at you and you say I'm going to throw a book. It's not countering. Is that a better example? Yes.
I'm with Croy. Works in Avatar.
They didn't throw fire at fire in Avatar. Did they? I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
I don't know, I've never seen it.
What?
As Paul knows.
Right. We won't discuss that here, but everybody in chat, go into our Discord and spam Kadari with "Why have you not watched Avatar, you weirdo?"
Oh, don't worry, one person in chat's already doing that. Quite regularly.
Very good, thank you. Oh, hang on, that. No, I didn't mean to go here. Oh, that's all buggered. So that scene was all buggered. I don't know what's going on. So yes, that's hero points.
Why is there a fuel equation on that transition screen, by the way? It just caught my eye. there's an equation for something on the transition screen. Where'd that come from?
Who knows? We're not here to judge transitions. Right, so moving on. Because we've still not even got into combat yet, so we're gonna try and pick up the pace here a little bit.
In regard to Jade's question, that's probably not considered countering an effect. That's probably considered a separate affliction. But I like your plan.
What did Jade? What about if you throw the book at the fire starter's head to knock him out? Would the fire stop? Yes. But
it's not countering the effect.
You're not countering the fire blast.
I like the plan.
But yeah, you would be doing another action and you would get hit by the fire blast as he got hit by the book.
But I like the plan.
It's a good idea. Jade, it sounds like you need to make a hero and join the M&M campaign.
That's a pangolin level plan, that is.
It's not quite the bathtub plan.
The bathtub plan was inspired.
The bathtub plan's up there. Well, book plans down here, throwing fires down here. So yeah, you're doing good, Jade. But
if you haven't watched episode 1, go back and watch episode 1 so you understand the bathtub plan. And then you will agree with us that the best part of that is when he goes, I've already Googled the weight of a bathtub.
The best bit about that is, I think, it wasn't just me. We were all like, what is he doing? It's like,
why is he filling the bath?
Why is he filling a bath? We're literally in combat. He's filling a bathtub. Why?
Man just wants to take a bath.
And then it was literally when he said, what's my teleport weight, Max? And I was like, oh no. I know what he's doing.
I've Googled the weight of a bathtub.
I've Googled the weight of a full bathtub, but I need to know what my weight is. So yeah.
Anyway, extra effort.
Extra effort.
It's tables 3. Bottom right, it's in yellow.
Oh, you can see tables. Oh, that's good.
I can, I found them.
Smooth transition, guys. Bear with us. Whee. Look at that. It was so well done that I don't think anyone even noticed that it happened.
Didn't even have to pull up the technical difficulties screen.
No. So, extra effort. There you go. So, extra effort.
It's gone off screen a bit. There you go. Never mind.
It's back. Don't worry about that.
Stream delay. We also all saw your typo.
No, you didn't. Shut up. Extra effort. Come on, we've got to be quick. Extra effort is a secondary feature to Mutants and Masterminds. So your hero points, you spend your hero points to be able to do them. Extra effort is very similar. It's got slightly different things that you can do, but instead of spending a hero point, you take a condition. And that's pretty much it. So these are things that you can do whenever and as how many times as you want, but you gain a condition. Now, with the way extra effort works is if you are already got certain conditions on and you do extra effort multiple times in a row without resting, you will knock yourself out. And so you can basically, if say you were in a boss battle and you were at the final thing and you knew that the boss was only a few hits away, you can use extra effort to basically go all out and just, oomph your ability and knock yourself out. Literally, it's knocking yourself out. So the ways you can do extra effort is action. Gain an additional standing action during your turn, which may be exchanged for a move or a free action. So you could say, I'm going to attack one more time than usual. And by doing this, your character exhausts themselves. So cost of extra effort starts at the start of the turn immediately after using it, you become fatigued. If you're already fatigued, you become exhausted, and if you're already exhausted, you become incapacitated. But this happens after, so you literally can just go, I'm going full blast, and you can spend this all in one go. So if you've got no status effect, you can basically do 3 extra efforts in one go and go boom and then go bye-bye.
Losing birds are optional but recommended.
Yeah. So you can gain yourself an extra action, or essentially up to 3 actions. Bonus. Perform 1 check with a bonus. So a +2 circumstance bonus, or improve an existing bonus to a +5. So in certain circumstances you gain bonuses. An example of this would be if your power is to control and manipulate fire. If you're in a burning building, you would have an advantage on anything you're doing because you've got fire all around you. So on all your rolls with your powers, you would get a +2 environment effect bonus for yourself. And vice versa, if you're a fire blaster and you happen to be underwater, you're going to take a minus. In fact, you're probably going to take the -5 because at that point there's probably an argument that you probably couldn't use your powers at all. So yeah, there would be just more smoke and bubbles at that point. So yeah, so by doing a bonus, you can upscale that. If you're already taking a -2, you basically can use your bonus to bring it up to a 0. If you're already on a +2, you can take it to a 5. So it stacks on whatever your current bonus is. If you're already on a +5 bonus, it doesn't go higher than that. So if you're already getting a +5 because you're in the perfect environment for your powers and everything, then the bonus is not going to do anything to your roll or effect. I would hope that any decent GM would at least tell you that if you tried to do extra effort bonus, if that's not going to have any effect.
It'd be polite.
It'd be polite to basically say you don't need to do that. Power. Increase one of your hero's power effects by 1 rank until the start of the hero's next turn. Not usable on anything that's permanent. So again, this is basically your actual powers. You can gain an extra level. Certain circumstances, it might not be as useful depending on your powers. But in other aspects, it could be very useful. I couldn't probably give you any decent examples of where it would and wouldn't. But yeah.
Obvious examples are damage or affliction effects.
Yeah.
Makes it slightly harder to resist. Less obvious examples, but examples that can work really well in the right circumstances, are powers that actually change by rank. For example, Incorporeal, where 2 ranks of Incorporeal allows you to walk through walls. 3 ranks of Incorporeal allows you to basically float. Insubstantial even, sorry.
Yeah. An example there, thank you Borgat, would be also like a bathtub. So if your character physically couldn't lift that bathtub because it was a slightly higher, like I said, you can extra effort 3 times at once as long as you don't have any... Well, yeah.
Well, you might not need 3.
You might not need 3, you might just need 1.
For the most part, +1 rank doubles whatever you're doing.
Yeah, so...
For anything that requires measurements, an extra rank is essentially doubling the previous measurement.
Yeah.
So if you can normally only lift half a bathtub, extra effort might let you lift full bathtub.
1 rank will give you a full bathtub. 2 ranks, 2 bathtubs. 3 ranks, 4 bathtubs. Party.
Off the bathtub store.
Swimming pool. So yeah, so it can be quite beneficial, but I would say that's probably circumstantial where that would actually come into play.
Well, anything with extra effort is circumstantial.
Yeah.
If you can think of a good way to use it, it's impressive.
Yeah. And again...
if you just need that extra bit of damage, it's still useful.
Yeah, and this isn't just specifically for combat. This can be done outside of combat. Say you need to instantaneously teleport across the city to get a message to somebody. You can't physically do it in, the 6 seconds before the bomb goes off. So you decide, right, I'm going to use, extra effort, bonus up my thing so I can teleport way, way away. Not necessarily in combat, but it would have that effect, and it's up to your GM's discretion to basically say that time frame. Around basically 1 turn in combat is roughly 6 seconds, so that's what you're playing with if you're not in combat. You talk about 6 seconds worth of extra effort sort of thing if you were to use it outside. Speed, very straightforward, increases your hero speed rank by +1 until the start of your hero's turn. Very straightforward. If you're a quickster, that could be very beneficial. If you're a normal person, that can still be quite beneficial because, like I said, the way points work in Mutants and Masterminds is it's exponential, so it just doubles and doubles. So 1 point doubles what you're already able to do. So if you can run at 30 mile per hour and you put 1 more rank in speed, you're now able to run at 60 mile per hour. So it can be very beneficial, just that 1 little extra point. Power Stunt. Gain an alternate effect that lasts until the end of the scene or until its duration expires, whichever comes first, not usable on permanent effects. So alternate effects are the things that you can stack on powers. Like we were showing you on Gem's character, he could decide an area for his power class. No, it's not starting that again.
You've already started.
So for Pangolin's character, like you said, is he defined an area for his power. And that's the alternate effect. So you can decide, just for this one use of your power, you may want to change the area so it's not a line, it may go outwards. That would be a power stunt. You're using your power a way that you not actually wrote it in the book. I should say that the way Mutants and Masterminds works is you can rewrite your powers as an alternate effect to cover certain things where you may want to, say, use your power in a different way that's different to how you've wrote it in the book, and that only costs you one single point to be able to do that. And as long as this alternate effect, your second way of using your power, never exceeds the maximum points of your first power, it only costs you 1 point. A power stun is essentially doing that, but you don't have to prepare it. So you can say, well, I know I've not designed my power to do this, but as a power stunt, I'm capable of pushing myself to do this effect as a one-off sort of thing. So a power stunt is basically, rather than you setting up an alternate effect of your power, you can say, I'm doing a power stunt, and there you go. It's done.
This is something that's super common in comic books when heroes do not have a way to solve a situation. For example, in an old X-Men arc that I've completely forgotten, a boat is leaking. Cyclops uses his I-beams, which are kinetic, let's not have the argument, to weld the boat shut.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be possible. But he power stunts it.
Yeah. So, power stunt, you're just making a little adjustment to your power to be able to do something that you wouldn't normally have been able to do. That, depending on how much you want to twist it, your GM may say, that might take 2 levels of extra effort if you're going to go really off, out of par sort of thing. So that's one that you would have to probably say to your GM how you actually want to do, or what you're doing as a power stunt, and he'll then tell you, well, that's going to cost you 2 extra efforts, or 3 or 1. Sometimes you might be generous and say, yeah, no, you can easily do that. That's within the realms of what you can do, sort of thing. Yeah, a lot of Mutants and Masterminds, it's a bit of play, because you don't want to make it that you have to do power stunts every time you decide, rather than me sending out a fire blast of 30 foot, I'd like to only use 10 foot of it. That would be up to your GM's discretion to basically go, well, yeah, you just don't push as hard, so it's not going to be a power stunt to do less, it's more of a power stunt to do more, or something that's very different, more specialized. But doing less, it's up to your discretion of your GM, basically, to say, yeah, that's fine, so I'll do it. Resistance. Gain an immediate additional resistance check against an ongoing effect. If compelled or controlled, the hero doesn't suffer fatigue until free of the effect. So, pretty much as it says there, you gain an immediate additional resistance check against an ongoing effect. So, if you fail your resistance check sort of thing, you can get an additional resistance check against it for an ongoing effect that you're already suffering, sort of thing. But don't forget, if you do that, you are trading off with cost of effect, with extra effort. So yes, you may help get rid of one effect, but by doing resistance, you're going to gain fatigued. So if you're using resistance to get rid of fatigue, you're an idiot. Because you're just going to end up with fatigue.
Well, that'd be recovering as well.
So resistance is more for helping get rid of the other conditions that you get.
There's a sub-rule there that only exists because people would otherwise use it in a very meta way, which we won't discuss because nobody's going to do it, but it can be entertaining.
Yep. Meow Neighbour asks, are there ways to change things to benefit the party, not just the one character, or would that be just edit the scene type thing? It would pretty much fall under edit the scenes. Some of the rules for hero points specifically say they only affect you. So, the heroic feat, the improved roll, and that's all on your character. Everyone has 1 hero point, so it's more, if they need it, they should spend it themselves. The edit the scene does work for everybody, though. So, you could easily say that you want something to be edited for everybody. If you're in a sinking ship, you could edit the scene and say there's a life vest for all of us, sort of thing. You could be an arsehole and say there's only a life vest for one person. But yeah, so the edit the scene is more fair. You can do that and cater for everybody, but most of these are more specifically for your character to deal with. So yeah, I mean, some of these, on the extra effort there with your power, one of your powers may be to actually buff and increase somebody, if you've made a healer or something. So in that case, you could essentially help somebody out by doing it yourself, but essentially the effects are on you more than anything. Retry on extra effort. So certain effects require extra effort to retry after a certain degree of failure. The extra effort merely permits another attempt to use the effect. It grants no other benefits.
No, I don't have an example prepared. It's rare.
What? For retry?
For retry, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the rare situation. In those situations, it's specifically noted in the powers table that you need to use extra effort to retry it. And I don't have an example prepared.
Yeah. That's not a case of you can just retry any role that you've done. It's specifically, there are effects that will say require, essentially.
Yeah, it's very specific situations.
Yeah. So that one, your GM will probably tell you more about if you do encounter it, sort of thing. And again, hopefully your GM will be a bit nice and go, this option is available for you. That's if he knows. He might not know. Don't always blame the GM. Strength. Increase your hero strength rank by +1 until the start of the hero's next turn. Very straightforward, that one. Like your speed, it's just an extra +1, and like we say, that is a double effect. So by putting that +1, if you could only lift half a bathtub, again, you'll now be able to lift the full bathtub. So very straightforward, and that's extra effort. So like I said, extra effort you can use as many times as you want, but you take a condition. Once you become incapacitated, you're pretty much knocked out. So you will have to rest, but in theory you can do extra effort multiple times in one episode if the GM says that there's basically been time for you to rest during that point. And that could be, as you're driving around, you sit in the back of the van and you say, I'm resting, sort of thing, and they can basically say, yeah, the drive was about an hour, you're now recovered from that rest, and then you can do extra effort again. So this is, like I said, it's very similar to the hero point system, different mechanics though, and instead of spending hero points you gain conditions, but in theory it's there to help you do situations that you might not have been able to do beforehand. You got nothing you want to say on that extra effort? We're happy to move on.
I'm good. Any questions from chat?
Anyone in chat want to ask a question? I have got a question still from Ange, and I've been holding it on because it is related to combat. I think
I deleted that one. That's
fine. I've got it. So without further ado, we'll move on to the last section that we wanted to cover tonight.
The list isn't up to date.
Which is combat. Yes, bathtubs is now a unit of measurement in Mutants and Masterminds. Oh dear. So we'll...
Can we convert the entire ranks and measures table to use bathtubs?
I think we could. I think it would work, to be fair.
Power stopping when you're unconscious is per power, Jade. In the specific example you're asking about, Pangolin's scaled form is an activated power. If Pangolin is knocked unconscious, that power doesn't automatically deactivate, but he can't activate it while he's unconscious.
Yep.
Some powers automatically deactivate, and that's noted as a condition of the power. Some powers, the hero has to activate and deactivate, and it's very difficult to knock Pangolin unconscious in his scaled form, but if it does happen, he's still scaled. But he can't turn that off, so it may stop other heroes from being able to revive him, because he's covered in armour.
Yeah.
But it's very much a per power thing. Most, what you consider the equivalent to concentration effects in 5e powers like create or move object would stop when you're unconscious. Powers that are activated are an on-off switch. They're on until you turn them off.
There is an exception to that, which could be, say, there's a story mechanic that disables your powers. Like if your GM was to introduce something like kryptonite for your
if a power's disabled, then the power's disabled.
Now,
unconsciousness doesn't disable powers.
Yeah, and that's something to consider when you're building your character sheet, because the things that you put into your basic stats, your strength and agility, they're not really defined as powers. They're defined as your natural ability. So, where, say, your kryptonite might disable your power to fire laser beams out your eyes and everything, and if your power was super strength, you would lose that. But your natural strength and agility and fighting, that doesn't tend to take the same hit as you do if it's an actual power. So it's, I think we had this when character creation, somebody asked about, well, you've got strength on the first section where you can put power points in, and then you can essentially just have a power to give you the strength. What's the difference? Because they cost they cost the same amount of points. And it's this idea that if it's a power, it can be removed by an environmental effect, or, you can even put your own effects in to say that you're weakened if you're not in that form. Basically, you're building a Hulk. You're saying when I go into Hulk mode, I gain this strength, but when I'm not in Hulk mode, I have a natural strength sort of thing. So, that's the difference between having points spent on strength there and then having points spent elsewhere. But yeah, some powers, if you've built them to be only when you're concentrating, they would go out when you go unconscious. You could, if you've built your powers, you can say they're permanent, in which point, pretty much, even if you're dead, those powers will still have an effect. Probably not if you're dead on certain things, to be fair, but, I could think of a couple of examples where you could be dead and still in Hulk form. But yeah.
Well, a good example there is create permanent.
Yeah.
If your create power has the permanent effect on it, the things you create are permanent. They're not based on your being conscious or your being alive. You could die and something that you permanent created is still there because it's permanent.
So hopefully that answers that question. That was a good question. I like that one.
That was a good question.
Combat. The moment we've all been waiting for.
Some of us.
Some of us have. So combat. So now this is where, we all know, I've already stated it, we've made a little bit of a mess on the last episode of Mutants and Masterminds. And it was, I'm happy to take full responsibility. I will say there is some responsibility on the way it's written in the book. I will put some responsibility on a video that I watched that supposedly explained combat this way, and I didn't quite understand the video. It's a terrible video. You need to watch this video. This video's better. But yeah. So the way combat works is very much like any other tabletop.
Unconsciousness question in chat.
Yeah, I just saw
before
that.
we move on.
So like with my character, if I went unconscious, would my power be released or just dissipate? So you're talking specifically about the fact that your character holds charge. So for anyone who's not aware, Meow Nerva's character in Mutants and Masterminds has the ability to draw power out of things. And she can store that and then essentially release it into different forms. She can either use it to charge up her power or her ability, or to just release it out as an electric burst. She can also just pinch light from one place and give it to another place. So she acts as a battery. If your character was to come unconscious, I would probably say, I'd have to double check your character sheet. I think with your character sheet, because you've not set anything to say permanent or anything, if you became unconscious, that energy would essentially probably not just instantaneously release out, but it could probably trickle out like a phone left on standby sort of thing. But in theory, yeah, unless you've set your powers to say that, you regardless of you going unconscious, as a rule of thumb, if you've not done that, it pretty much will trickle out. Same as, if you've picked a flame form, if you've not said that, if you put in the effect that it requires concentration, then yes, if you're knocked out, your power goes out. If you put in the alternate effect where it doesn't require concentration and it's permanent, in that case, no. If you're knocked out, you're still going to be on fire. If you've not specified, I suppose at that point it probably comes under the rule of the GM, depending on the situation and how badly you're knocked out, sort of thing. It's hard to say it as a direct example to your character, because, like I said, I'd have to look at the actual character sheet and see how I wrote that power. But I would say with your character, if you were knocked unconscious, yeah, your electricity would essentially trickle out, sort of thing. You wouldn't wake up and still be fully electrified. Basically, I was trying to think of an analogy that you're basically a torch that's been left on. As soon as you go unconscious, you would slowly start draining over a period of time. You wouldn't just instantaneously go out, probably, with your character. Combat. So, yeah, so like very many other tabletop role-playing games, the combat's worked in this is there are 2 parts to every attack. The first part is, do I hit? The second part is, how bad what did I hit? And the second part is different to what probably you would expect. The first part is pretty much the same. So, if we're gonna do a little bit of a slow role play here. So, Kadari, you're gonna be your pangolin character.
Yep.
And I'm gonna take over this the city cop. So, if we're gonna start this combat by basically the cop's going to be aggressive and he's going to attack poor pangolin. And why he does
pangolin.
This
Hit me.
is we have set up here the cop's abilities, and he has a baton and a ranged pistol. Now we're going to start fairly nice. We're not going to go out in a guns blazing. He also has the ability to just punch him in the face, but he is a cop.
Everybody has that.
So we're going to roll for the cop to use his baton, and you see that in chat. Now we're going to explain what that is you actually see. So the first thing that happens is he rolls an attack, and this is to see if it hits or not. And so that 12 comes from a d20, as in life. So you can see there on that d20 he rolled a 9, and he gains a +3 from this section, which is his attack bonus, and that's set by the actual... What is that set by?
Fighting.
Yeah, that's set by his fighting skill. So you see,
Close combat is typically fighting.
Yeah.
Technically, it's what's listed in his skills on the right, but since he doesn't have any ranks in hitting things with a baton, it's straight fighting.
Yeah, straight fighting. So if this police officer had a few, had assigned 2 points in, that makes it 5. He would then have a +5 on that, and that's generally, like I say, that's to see if the officer hits. And this, because it's a close combat attack, this goes against the parry of Pangolin. And Pangolin, what is your parry?
My parry is 6, I think. I'm doing this off memory. I will have a look. My parry is 1. Wait, what?
Is that right?
That's not right. No, my parry's 11 because it's 10 + 1. There you go. My parry's 11. I know what I'm doing.
Your sheet says 1 though.
That's because parry DC's at the top, mate.
Ah, yes, it
10
is.
plus my ranks in parry, which makes it 11.
Yeah, so I'll just show that.
I'm not good at parrying.
Show that to chat. So you see there, so Pangolin's DC is 11, so that's his standard 10 + 1. So this cop hit with 12, so that basically means that the baton hits. So his parry is basically your armor class. For some of you who will probably know it like that.
Yeah.
It's your armor class. except for you just have different armor classes depending on what you're doing. So in close combat, it's parry. If it's long distance, it's dodge.
Typically.
And then certain other things, you also have fortitude, toughness, and will. So if it's a mental attack, it will be your will sort of thing. Fortitude and toughness are very unique, so we won't bother going into that. So it's
fortitude's typically used for afflictions.
Yeah. But more often in combat, you're going to pretty much be dealing with dodge, parry, and will.
Yeah.
As a standard.
Defensively, you're more likely to deal with dodge, parry, or will.
So on this situation, the police officer manages to get a successful attack on our pangolin. So, on a physical attack in close combat, this is resisted by fortitude. So the damage that the police officer's doing on... Sorry? Toughness, sorry, yeah, toughness, not fortitude. Sorry. So the damage that the police officer is doing is 18. So this is where Kadari will now roll his toughness. Yeah, so he rolls 22.
And then doesn't say pangolin, my bad. Fix that.
Yeah. So, because he's rolled 22, he's rolled high. Now, this is where it's slightly different. Yes, you can say from that pangolin doesn't take any damage from it. But the way Mutants and Masterminds works is the damage is done in successes and failures. And a success is 5, every 5 over. So he's over, so he gets 1 success. And so nothing happens. If you get, if you're defending and you get loads of successes, that's great, doesn't actually do anything. If he'd rolled under, say 17, that's 1 degree of failure. And on that circumstance, pangolin would take 1 injury, which means the next time he rolls toughness, he has a -1. If the damage was more than 5, so say the damage is 18 and pangolin had rolled a 10, that's 2 degrees of failure. So at that point, pangolin would take 2 injuries. Am I right so far? Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So 2 degrees of failure, 2 injuries, as the sheet calls it,
Yes.
means that then the target is dazed and has a
Yes.
-1 against any further checks against damage.
Yeah, and that's another important thing. They actually gain the condition daze. So after that point, when they're dazed, they're only allowed to take a single action per turn, sort of thing. So they can only move or attack, sort of thing. So straight away, by 2 degrees of failure, you're damaged. If you've already had 2 degrees of failure and you're still dazed, then that's pretty much you done. So if you gain 2 degrees of failure whilst in combat, you get knocked out. So if on the previous roll you got 2 degrees of failure and you got damaged and dazed, and then you did it again, you're now considered incapacitated. And essentially for the rest of the combat, you're out, unless obviously you've got somebody who can bring you back. You're out. You're not dead. You're out. And the other one is a straight 3 degrees of failure. So if you get 3 degrees of failure or more, you are immediately KO'd. So if for some reason pangolin had rolled, a 2, he's instantly KO'd.
3 degrees of failure, you're staggered. 4 degrees of failure, you're
Sorry, yes, yeah. 4 degrees of failure, you're into 3. Oh, hang on, I've caught this up already, haven't I?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't come up that often.
Yeah.
Essentially, damage is cumulative.
Yes.
So, as long as you're dealing damage, as long as your damage is higher than the enemy's toughness, eventually you'll wear them down. If you can hit really hard, you'll wear them down and you'll gain additional effect.
Yes.
Because if you get hit by a freight train, you're going to feel it.
So yeah, so
well, actually, you're probably not going to feel it.
Yeah.
You're going to be dead, but
just to amend what I did say, you can get as many 2 degrees of failure as you want. It's the 3 and the 4 degrees of failure that's endgame stuff. So once you get 3 degrees of failure, you become staggered. You gain the -1 per circumstance penalty to further checks. And if you get staggered again, so the staggered condition basically says your
Staggered
days,
is dazed and hindered.
If you get staggered again when you're already staggered, that's it, you're incapacitated. So if you get 3 degrees of failure in a row, you're out. If you get 4 degrees of failure straight off the bat, so in this case, if say Kadari rolled a 1 and it was a natural 1, against that 18, that would be 4 degrees of failure. And at that point, even if this is the first punch-in battle, Kadari is out. Gone. And again, like I said, unless there's a way to bring him back, that's it. And the way this works in combat is essentially the more and more you attack a certain enemy, and every success you get, they gain a -1 on their injury. So essentially it's a whittling mechanic. The more and more times you successfully hit an opponent, they get weaker and weaker and weaker, and eventually they will get either 2-3 degrees of failures against one of your rolls, 2 of your rolls, or they gain a 4 degree of failure against one of your roll, and at that point they're knocked out.
Question from chat: no, you cannot. Recover does not cover incapacitated.
So again, the recovery specifically is against dazed, fatigued, and stunned conditions. Woo! Hello, Elven Kari, how are you doing? You've probably raided the most boring section of the Infinite Monkey Tales. Welcome, raiders. We are currently going through Infinite Monkey Tales. What were you up to?
No, we're not. We're going through Mutants and Masterminds. We're always going through Infinite Monkey Tales. Do you want to start again for all the raiders that just joined?
Yeah, we'll have a minute. I think the raiders has thrown me off. Hi guys, how you all
was it the
doing?
raiders this time?
The raiders. I'm blaming everybody today.
Welcome to all.
Oh my God! Another raid. Hi,
welcome
trolls.
to all the other raiders who also come here to watch.
Oh my God!
That's probably a lot less interesting.
Welcome to.
Happy birthday, trolls.
Yes, happy birthday, trolls. I'm sorry about the server issues you were having on your birthday stream. I'm glad you managed to at least explore for the 10-20 minutes, and I don't know what was going on with all those chickens. That was definitely not me. I don't know what was going on there. Welcome everyone. Yeah, if you're new to this channel, we normally are doing tabletop role-playing games on this channel, but tonight, as not a one-off, because we do Q&As all the time, as a special, because I cocked up running a combat session on Mutants and Masterminds, we're studying and going through combat on how it actually works.
You're studying.
I'm studying. Kadari's just telling me off every corner. But that's good. So welcome. Hope you've all had a good stream, trolls and Elven. Happy birthday again, trolls. If a mod hasn't already, can you do the shout outs, please? We'll happily support our friends. Yeah, thank you. So where were we on combat?
Damage resistance.
So I'm not going to sing, Ange. Sod off with that. I've seen that. You can sod right off. No, don't start. Now I feel awkward because I'm not singing.
Happy birthday to
you. Happy birthday, dear. Don't you stop, trolls. Happy birthday to you. Hey. Oh dear. Thank you for not carrying on singing.
Worth it.
It's the lot of you. Yes. So on combat, if you gain 4 degrees of failure, that's it. You're not tapped. So it's a whittling mechanic. So eventually, if you keep getting successful hits, you will eventually knock somebody out. And vice versa against you. If you keep getting whittled and whittled, you take on an injury, and eventually your defensive roll, your toughness check, will not be able to get you out of that situation. And that's pretty much roughly how the basic of combat works. Borgat did ask...
Basically damage in combat, which is what we're going to get into.
Can you go through Fortitude and Will later on just to cover everything? Basically, Fortitude and Will is different attacks. So if somebody comes up and punches you in the face, you are doing a parry. You know, that's a hand-to-hand combat situation. If you're firing a gun at somebody, you're throwing something, or you're firing a fireball at somebody, then it's a dodge situation, because at that point you're just moving left to right. A will situation is, say you come against somebody who's got a telepathic ability. For example, all of you came across a very special mutant, Avocat, on the last episode, and he was able to not avocado, no.
He was called Avocado, and you know it.
He was avocado. He was able to control you by basically telling you what to do, and that was a psychic effect. So you resisted that with will, because it's a mental attack against you. And then Fortitude is your Fortitude, as Kadari said, it's against actual effect. So if you're in a hot, blistering room, you would roll a Fortitude. So, if you're not
Will is a special one, separate to the other defences, because dodge and parry are only used for defensive checks. Fortitude and toughness are only used for resistance checks. Will can be used for both, because typically if you're resisting a mental effect, you use will to defend against it. You also use will to resist the effects of it.
Yes. So, yeah. Yeah. I can't add to that. But yeah.
Croy's just giving me my new backup character.
Is it the Quackaboy? God's sake. Yeah. And like I said, so Fortitude is where you're not, say, directly impacted by a flamethrower that comes at you, but say the room sets on fire and the room starts to become very hot and everything, you would then roll Fortitude. So in episode 1, where the guys were in the apartment that was on fire, Pangolin was able to stay in that room because he was able to resist heat. Had the others have tried to stay in that room, they would have been rolling Fortitude to see if they could actually stay in that room. And if they lost the Fortitude again, they would start taking injuries from losing that roll. And, if you were in combat, you would essentially take that on every combat turn. Outside of combat, it's kind of up to your GM to basically say when you have to roll that. But again, so in theory, if you're in a hot room and you keep rolling Fortitude and you lose it, and your injuries whittle it down eventually, you will get knocked out, sort of thing. And you'll become incapacitated, and you'll be in an oven, and you'll get cooked. Like a really fancy tanning salon. Yes? Am I right there?
Yep. Yes. I think maybe something worth discussing, since you brought it up there, is the concept of immunities and impervious resistances, which is, for example, as Infinity said, in a fire in episode 1, Pangolin could resist the fire not because of his high fortitude, but because he has an ability called Immunity Life Support, which allows him to ignore the effects of heat and cold and needing to breathe and things like that.
Yeah.
In the same way that Iron Man's suit, for example, would give him oxygen, allow him to ignore the effects of heat and cold. In a similar way, there's a power called Impervious, which you can apply to resistance. So, for example, Impervious Toughness, which Pangolin has, allows him to ignore all toughness checks below a certain value.
Yep.
He doesn't need to roll, he just automatically ignores all toughness checks below a certain value.
Yeah.
And you can have the same thing for a telepath, for example, like Professor Xavier has impervious will. He can ignore all will effects below a certain value. He's just too powerful for them to affect him.
Yeah, and this is probably, I would say, this is the weaker point where so far everyone in the campaign has spent their points, that they've not put, I think even if you look at Pangolin's sheet, not put loads of points in, say like the dodge and the parry and the will, and yet your toughness is your main one for taking the damage and everything, but obviously your dodge and parry will come in hand when you're trying to evade things. So like I said, they're your armor classes. It's just you have different armor classes in Mutants and Masterminds to actually deal with.
Yeah, the relevance of Pangolin specifically, he doesn't need points in his defenses because of impervious toughness, because he has so many points in toughness, and because he ignores toughness checks below a certain level, he can ignore defenses, because even if something hits him, it's very difficult to get through that resistance check of toughness.
Yeah.
You don't need to have high defense and high resistance. You can ignore one in favour of putting more points in the other.
Yeah, quite simply. And I'll drop in Angie's question that she did put in quite early on in.
That's the one I lost.
How does dropping created objects work in combat?
That's the one.
I'm not sure. There's either two ways.
There are rules for it.
There's two ways. I don't know which one you're asking about. The first one that I think you're talking about is, say, like a grenade or something. Throwing grenades. Depending
what
on
Ange actually asked was, how does throwing tombstones work? I rewrote it.
Did she rewrite?
Specifically, dropping created objects is something that has rules.
Yeah.
So dropping a tombstone on something, for example, is an area effect attack based on the size of the tombstone. The size of the tombstone is defined by the create power. So it's an area attack essentially against the ranks of the create power.
Yes. But your damage when you throw a tombstone at someone comes from the actual material of the tombstone itself. So
yes.
The fact that you're throwing stone means that if anyone's impervious to stone and they have a high toughness that's greater than that of stone, it's very unlikely that you'll ever be able to whittle them down. But then at that point it becomes death by 1,000 cuts. So you could essentially knock them out.
Death by 1,000 rocks.
Death by 1,000 tombstones. Yeah. So in theory, that's how it works. Your actual attack is your power level of how well and accurate you're able to throw these tombstones, and then the damage comes from the strength quality of your tombstone. So your character can create it up to the strength of stone. So that's the damage effect that goes on to it. Yeah, but you see, it still rolls. No, your damage never changes, doesn't it? Your damage
doesn't change.
Yeah,
no.
your damage never changes.
So the damage for that object is always the toughness of stone.
Yeah.
Which is a flat value I don't have to hand, but it's a flat value.
Yes.
That I don't have to hand.
The damage of stone is 5.
The defense check, which is relevant, is dodge.
Yeah.
It's dodge against flat 10, essentially.
Yes.
Because the object can't be aimed, it's just dropping on an area. Yeah. You're making a dodge check to get out of an area, as with any area power.
Yeah. So, just double check. So I'm on the wrong one there. Where's the button? There's the button. So yeah, so your damage is always 15 plus the strength of whatever it is. So for stone it's 5. So essentially, Ange, for your tombstones, your damage is always 20. So if somebody can easily resist 20 damage, even if you do manage to take it, essentially, yeah, you're not going to have a fun time. But yeah, the tombstone throwing at people, yeah, is quite a simple one. Yeah. So there's your question asked. Seeing as I mentioned it, I'll carry on though with grenades and gas effects sort of thing. They work pretty much as area effects.
Yes, they are. They're area powers.
Yeah. So it's basically, if it's a gas grenade or something, or a normal grenade, it's a throwable item. Now the thing with Mutants and Masterminds is anything that's area, it always hits. So if it's got an area and somebody is stood in that area that you're picking, they always hit.
Well, no, they have a dodge chance to get out of the area.
Yeah, they have a dodge, but essentially they manage to somehow stand in that area, and they're not, which is what you get, like, you know, in Dungeons and Dragons. If you do a fireball effect, you roll to see if you get hit by the fire. No, you get hit. You have a chance to dodge out of it, but you
get hit and you have a check for half effect, which is similar to how a lot of things in D&D would handle.
Yeah, very, very similar. But yeah, so that's probably the easiest way to say how grenades work, is that they're basically like a fireball in Dungeons and Dragons, where it happens into an area, everyone in the area takes the damage. If it's a gas sort of grenade or anything, it's that area then becomes toxicated, depending on how, you know.
Yeah, instead of being area damage, that's an area affliction.
Yeah. So yeah. I think that's a good cover of combat, would you say?
Unless you want to go into the actions, but that's more something to do during the actual gameplay. The relevance of bringing it up now is there was a question earlier about how Pangolin moved so quickly in one turn.
Oh, right, yeah. I'll let you.
Because of the concept of action types in this compared to action types in structured games.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently we also need to go over multi-attack.
Yes, thank you, Borgat, for mentioning that. We will talk about multi-attack, because that is an interesting... Yeah, we'll do that right after this, sorry.
So, actions in a combat turn, you have two, but they're freeform, essentially. You have two standard actions. Thank you for the gifted sub.
Yeah, thank you.
You have two standard actions. You can make one of those into a move action, or make both of those into move actions if you need to use moves. So your standard actions are things like attack or help an ally. Your move actions are move somewhere or draw a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And as a traditional move action, you can move up to your designated speed rank, which for Pangolin is 0.
Yep.
With a DC 15 athletics check, so it's flat DC 15, you can move twice your speed rank. That's the equivalent of, you'd say you were dashing in D&D, you'd use your action to dash. In Mutants and Masterminds, that's part of a move action if you choose it, but you need to pass that check.
Yep.
There are other sorts of actions, but we can go through those more during an actual, during combat play. This is 248.
I thought I had a thing. No, that's the same. I could have just held these up. They would have been good. Oh my god, the colour doesn't transpose very well. Oh, because it's all green. Oh yeah. I was gonna say. But yeah. So yeah. I think that
Actions, it's similar to how you'd run D&D or Pathfinder, really. When a player tells you what they want to do on a turn, then you can discuss how actions work with them. Yep. We don't really want to go through a long list of actions because most of them are logical. The ones that aren't logical, you can talk to your GM about.
Yeah,
but move, specifically, since it was asked about, you can make an athletics check to move +1 speed rank.
Yeah, and in Mutants and Masterminds, you can break up your movement if you put the points in. One of the examples of this is Croy's character Gem. He is actually able to teleport to a location, do an action, and then teleport back as long as it's within a certain distance. So as long as his maximum distance to get there and to get back in the same action is never exceeded his maximum distance, he's able to, say, teleport in, punch someone in the face, and teleport back. In the very same manner that Borgat's character... Name insert here. Redline, thank you. Saying that Redline, in the last combat session we did, she was able to run in, punch the guy in the face, and then run back out. So you know,
this is an advantage called move by attack.
Yeah, so you know, there are powers that essentially can give you extra attacks and extra actions in combat. So it's hard to basically. It's not like other games where it's one move, one action. Some of your powers, depending on how you've catered them and how you've tailored them, could end up with you having a chain of certain actions. And same as, you know, with the hero points and that, with extra effort, you can even spend that to get an extra action. So there isn't a set one action, one movement, it can be quite flexible if people are doing it right. If people are taking advantage of certain powers and certain extra efforts and that, you can get a little bit more out of your combat turn than you can in some other tabletop games. So yeah, combat can be quite this is why combat is very complex in this, because it can be quite different from hero to hero. There isn't an easy set standard table sort of thing. So the last thing I really want to touch up upon on combat is multi-attacking.
Because it's special.
It is very special, and it's quite fun actually. So I think 2 of our characters now have multi-attack.
Yes, Gem and Redline both have multi-attack.
Yes.
Which technically, I suppose, are in different... They take different forms, but they both have multi-attack.
Yeah. So, multi-attack is an extra addition that you put on your power. It's the word's gone from my head now. It's not an alternate effect, an extra effect of your power that you can assign, and you put points and spend points in it based on how many multi-attacks you want to be able to do. So, and I think the cost ratio is 1-to-1. So you put 1 point in multi-attack, you can attack 2 people. 3 point in multi-attack, you can attack 2 people. 4 point, 3 point, 5 point, so on. So -1 essentially to, or +1 to the point cost. So multi-attack works a little bit differently to normal combat, because essentially the rules of multi-attack is as long as your enemies are in a line/curve, you are able to attack as many as you want. Now, in theory, if you have the point spend on multi-attack, you can multi-attack 100 people in one attack. But there is a big disadvantage to doing this. Every single person, every extra target that you want to attack, you gain a -1 on all the other rolls. So if you attack 5 people, you take a -5 on every roll that you do. So if you were to attack...
You also have to attack everything within the arc.
Yeah,
so if you've got allies within the area, you're going to punch them as well.
Yeah, so if they're in the line and you're happy to punch them as you go along this line of 10 people, then yeah, you can take it. But in theory, so if you decided to go, I'm going to punch 100 people because they're all stood in a row, chances are you're basically running past them, just doing that to every single one, because you will take a -100 to the attack roll on every single one. So that's the thing to consider with multi-attacks, and that's why it's slightly
And then
different.
you're going to be asked to step out of the queue.
Yeah. So it does have to be in an arc, and obviously if they're in a line and it's 100 people, you have to be able to transverse that arc within that time frame. So unless you're a speedster, you obviously won't be able to attack 100 people stood in a line in 6 seconds. If you're talking about the people that are stood around you on the table, you could easily argue that you just swing round and you're capable of hitting essentially up to 9 people, I would say, within that 6 seconds, without having some sort of ability to speed up that effect. And obviously, you have to be able to move as you would do that attack. But you can use multi-attack to do multiple attacks on the same person, and you don't suffer anything. You don't suffer the same penalty by doing that.
No,
Yes?
multi-attacking a single person attacks differently.
Yes, as if it's not complicated enough. So yes.
Yeah, multi-attack basically breaks all the rules. So when you're multi-attacking a single target,
Yeah.
you make your attack check as you normally would. If you beat their defences, we then have to go back to the conversation about degrees of success. If you beat their defence by 2 degrees of success, your damage is then higher. If you beat their defence by 3 degrees of success, your damage is higher than that. So +2 bonus or +5 bonus.
Yeah.
If you only beat it by 1 degree of success, you just beat it.
Yeah. To Borgat's comment there, I thought it worked differently with my move by action. I was informed I could hit anybody I could move to in my turn. Yeah, that is true. But that's if you're doing say you're doing multi-attack and you're attacking multiple people in that line, you still have to be able to transverse that distance and get back.
Yeah, which you can do with move by action.
Yeah.
If you've got the speed or another area of movement that allows you to do that, you can break up your stand action in move by action. But you have to hit everything within the arc that you define as your multi-attack arc.
Yeah.
So if it's 5 guys in a line, you can hit a line. If it's 5 guys in a cone shape, you have to hit everything within that cone. Everything you define as the arc of multi-attack has to be hit.
Yes.
So you can't choose to only hit the enemies that are within your multi-attack arc and not the allies, unless you take the selective extra on your multi-attack, which you didn't do.
But with move by action, again, you're still constrained by the maximum distance that you can actually traverse on your turn. So your start point when you start the attack has to still be, even once you've done that curve, if you then come back, all of that has to be within your maximum distance still.
Yes.
So yours is selective multi-attack, so that means I can hit specific people within the range of my movement. Yeah.
Yes.
So you can basically run in and attack a specific person and then run back out. And because you're a speedster as well, you don't get attack of opportunity because in theory you're zooming.
That's because of a different power though.
Yeah.
It's not baseline just for being fast. There's a specific power that allows Redline to avoid attack of opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, and I know nobody's asked it, but I just thought I'd bring it up because it's always a fun conversation. In Mutants and Masterminds, there isn't actually anything written about speedsters, because one thing that I was curious about when we looked at speedsters, and I was hoping we'd never get a speedster, and lo and behold, Borgat decided to break my hopes and dreams, as usual, is... some people would argue that speedsters, if they're able to move so fast and everything, that surely they should be able to do extra combat and everything. Now, in Mutants and Masterminds, the way speedsters work is they're able to do certain things faster than others, but it works on a time system sort of thing. So if an object, if they were like to search through a filing cabinet would take a normal person an hour, they're able to do it within essentially seconds sort of things. But the rules don't seem to carry on to the actual combat mechanics, and so there actually isn't anything fully official in Mutants and Masterminds for speedsters relating to combat.
It's a deliberate functional choice.
It's mainly because speedsters can be very OP.
Yeah, if you want to define a speedster who has multiple actions in combat, you can use the existing rules to do that. So it's multi-attack and move by action, which is what Redline has.
Yes.
Speedsters don't get more individual standard actions on their turn, because if they did, it would break action economy entirely.
Yes.
But multi-attack with selective, move by action, and speed natively define essentially the same thing as being a speedster who can dash around the room and punch everything once.
Yeah. So the general rule of thumb is basically speedsters, you treat them like anybody else. They have, the same, unless they've got points specifically or they have certain powers that allow them to do so, they have a standard action and movement like everybody else. But yeah, speedsters, bit OP. There are certain aspects of Mutants and Masterminds that they've pretty much put a big line under and said, this is OP. One of the things that is ridiculously OP that I've actually ruled out on our campaign for the players is time travel, because we're not going to get into it, but essentially, there's so many different rules on time travel. There isn't a standard in Mutants and Masterminds that I know. I've not fully read the actual time codex because they have released a book on time travel, but this is it's the problem is that Mutants and Masterminds is a very rule-heavy set of instructions, mainly for the GM, less the players, because certain powers have certain effects and blah 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 blah. I'll be here all day, and to go into detail to be able to balance out certain things like that, you'd be talking a whole book just required just for speedsters to cover everything that they could and couldn't be able to do. So they basically just leave it up to no, they don't, sort of thing. Name a TTRPG where time travel works. Doctor Who TTRPG, thank you very much. Time travel works.
That's not within the context of Mutants and Masterminds Q&A.
Oh, right, oh. Yeah. So Speedsters is a bit of an awkward one. In theory, there is a very good argument for the fact that they should be able to, but there is a point where I think Paul's Speedster, we joke about it, he moves so fast that if you were in at the start, he made the point, if he slapped a chicken, he could cook it. And
we've done the maths.
We have done the maths. That does check out. His hand moves that fast. The kinetic energy would indeed cook said chicken as it got launched into the stratosphere. Speed in Mutants Mastermind wasn't really designed for people to take it to those boundaries, but there's only so many rules that they can put in the book before people will just not play it because there are too many rules.
I mean, at its core, it's an open-ended system because it's a system that allows you to make whatever comic book hero or villain you can think of, you can define within this power set. But to do that, you need to sit down with your GM and agree that a certain power works a certain way.
Yep.
And as a result of that, it is entirely possible to sit down with your GM and make a character that breaks the entire system.
Yeah, I mean,
just don't, because that's not fun.
There is. I've stumbled across this naturally myself, and I've also read it up on some forums. Because there are certain mechanics on your powers, so like you can take a disadvantage on your power, which essentially makes your power cheaper. So there are certain disadvantages you could put on a certain power that basically makes it free. And at that point, you can literally rack it up to the maximum level of power, and it costs you no points. Although you can only use said power on a Sunday when you're stood inside of a church whilst holding a glass of orange juice. It's one of them. Everything about this is down to GM, which is, I think this is one of the things that makes Mutants and Masterminds a bit awkward, is it's very hard to create a character unless you are working with your GM to do it. So, it's not, you couldn't really take your character to another Mutants and Mastermind table without that GM looking at your character and going through it with you. It's not like, Dungeons and Dragons, where you could literally take your bard and go and play in somebody else's game as long as they were on the same level, because it really is up to your GM to basically to decide
nobody
whether
wants
your
a bard at their table.
Nobody wants to play. Well, nobody wants a bard at anybody's table anyway, and
No, that's true.
But yeah, so in Mutants and Mastermind, your character is very specific to the game and has to be agreed on by your GM. So it's the worst bit about Mutants and Masterminds, and unfortunately it's the bit that really drags out character creation on Mutants and Masterminds. I think to create a character, so far I think we've averaged like 2 hours for each person to create a character, just because it go, partly because they don't know the system and everything, but there is a part of them where it is just a case of, well, you have to do it as, you tell me what your power is, and then I'll tell you what that actually is in the rules. And obviously, there is a point where they go, no, you can't do that. That's a bit too OP. Before we finish up, chat, if you've got any more questions, please get them in now, otherwise forever hold your peace. Specifically talking to the people who are playing Mutants and Masterminds, this is your last chance to ask me any questions whilst Kadar is here, and he will actually give you the correct answer. After this,
well, no, your last chance is tomorrow when it's relevant.
Yes.
At which point I'll still be there and can give you the advice. So.
Yeah.
But if you want to ask now, that'd be nice.
Yeah, ask now while we're here and we're in this lovely format, and I can change the little.
Gavin's looking forward to tomorrow. That was deliberate.
Sure, it was like my stream time.
Someone has to carry it on.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah,
it's as bad as my Monday game where we've been stuck in the same town for so long now that we've started giving it a different name every session, and it's really winding the DM up. But we're carrying on because we can.
Yeah. And how do we play?
Question regarding quickness. You're not supposed to say I've got a question, Paul. You're supposed to type
Give
the
us the question.
Don't become trade chat.
Hurry up, we'll wait. So hopefully this is a... we've not gone into detail on everything. I think we've tried to do it as not in depth, but as basic as possible for you guys. I do suggest there probably are some videos out there that probably explain it a little bit better and probably have edited it so that they could...
Not judging by what you watched.
Yeah, but who may have edited it together and chopped out the bits where they said something stupid like we did.
Are we going to do that?
No. This is all being kept. Quickly, Bogart. So quickness gives the hero the ability to react at super speed. Could they technically use this quickness to have bonuses to things like passive perception? No.
No, because you're misreading quickness. Quickness allows the hero to perform routine actions at super speed. You could use it to have a bonus to your active perception. If you're looking around a room, you can do that faster than anybody else. Technically, you're taking an hour to look around a room in 2 seconds. It doesn't improve your passive perception, because that's not something you're actively doing. That's not a routine action.
Yeah.
In the same way, it doesn't affect your ability to do combat, because that's not a routine action.
It comes back to this, species are kind of OP because you could say, well, rather than me look round the room, I literally blitz round the room and check every nook and cranny within the space of, 6 seconds, at which point I would notice everything, right? Yes. In theory, yes. In practicality, you would ruin the game.
And also, you'll probably, waft the bit of paper you need under a desk and never find it again.
Yeah. It's the thing with species is it's got to be balanced to some degree. Yes, species are very overpowered just because they're breaking the time rule in Mutants and Masterminds. Everything's based around 6 seconds, and because they can do a lot of things faster than that, the idea is that you think of it as like the Flash. The Flash isn't permanently whizzing round at 100 mile per hour. Otherwise he would be knackered by the end of it. So there are points where he just doesn't naturally speed up and go really fast, and he, at that point he is just like anybody else, and he is flowing with time, sort of thing.
At that point, he's just the man.
Yeah, he's just a man. So I could very much argue with you there, Bogart, that in theory, yes, if you were in a small room and everyone was doing perception rolls, if you're a speedster, yes, of course you'd be able to spot something very easily, sort of thing. But to make the game fair and everything.
That one's for you. You're the GM.
So in regards to the no death things, does this stand for NPCs too? Right. So if we're talking specifically on our campaign,
we are.
Thank you.
That's a set of rules that exists. This is a flavour question.
If anybody here has watched Bad Boys, is it Bad Boys?
No, you're thinking of The Boys. Bad Boys is the buddy cop film with Will Smith.
Yes, it is. Boys on Amazon. The Boys.
The Boys.
Yeah.
It's got a V.
The campaign that we're running on Infinite Monkey Tales runs in that sort of comic book world where essentially death is there, and it's not happened yet, but it is in the campaign that I'm running, in the setting that I've done, death is a realistic thing. Mutants and Masterminds can be played in 2 different ways. You can play it in the old-fashioned comic book way, where nobody ever dies, bad guys just go to prison, sort of thing. or you can run it. Basically, you've got Marvel and DC versions of Mutants and Masterminds. You've got your Marvel version where it's fun, happy, jokey, la 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 la. Nobody dies.
Silver Age DC doesn't have much death.
Well, nobody dies until Tony Stark decides to, but that we won't get there. People will cry. And then you have the DC where the bad guys get killed off like no tomorrow. It's up to each game, but specifically in ours, yes, your characters can die, and yes, NPC characters can die. If they're put in a situation where I would say yes, that person would definitely die, that will happen. We've not yet had it, but it will happen.
I think the relevant distinction is the combat rules don't end in character death.
No.
The combat rules, if you take someone out, they are knocked out, and you can deliver them to police or whatever. Or if you want to kill them, you can kill them. Suit yourself.
Yeah.
But death isn't the end state of combat. No. Death is a storyline choice.
Yes. Yeah. So, you may be in a situation where death happens because of an environmental effect of some sort, or it's like as Kadari said, an after combat. If the whole team gets knocked out, they could be killed. If you're not, essentially, it's not going to be easy. I'll tell you that now. Death is not easy to do in Mutants and Masterminds. So somebody has to be wanting that death. But with NPCs, it's probably a little bit easier than you think. For example, Speedster here, who slaps a chicken and cooks it and sends it into orbit, he could in theory
kill somebody. We
kill
won't discuss the chicken thing.
I know, but it's a great reference. If you in Mutants and Masterminds were to throw an NPC civilian into space, they would die. Can
I do that? I need to do some maths.
Probably, yeah. I would have thought so. So yeah,
I need to do some maths.
In the current campaign, if you were to put an NPC, especially like a bog standard human, into a position where I think it's very easily to say that that would if that was in the real world, they would die. They are going to die in this campaign. So yeah, so if you
that brings up a very good point. If I throw the gym into space, do I still get the money for it?
The gym?
Yeah. Those guys in episode 1.5 wants me to throw the gym through that building. I throw the gym into space.
You know what? I'm so disappointed you didn't throw Jim.
That was a moral quandary Pangolin was not interested in. Yes, I'm not throwing the gym.
Yeah.
But can I throw the gym in space?
You could probably throw Jim into space, I think, with Ghost Rope. We'll calculate it, and I think we'll probably be close enough anyway.
We'll do the maths.
It's only like, 14 miles?
Yep.
So to Meow Nerva's question, yes, NPCs definitely can die, and they're probably a little bit more squishy than you guys, so they have a better chance of actually dying in our campaign. So be careful. But I will say with our campaign, the one thing that Mutants and Mastermind never actually states anywhere is there is no good or bad system. There's no chaotic good, there is no neutral good. You are a hero. Well,
what he's looking for is alignment.
Yeah, thank you. There is no alignment system. It's called Mutants and Masterminds. It's not called Heroes and Villains, as Ange keeps calling it. It's Mutants and Masterminds.
It's also not called Masters and Mutant Minds.
It's also not called that. It's Mutants and Masterminds. So, and, in theory, the whole team should be aligned to one degree to basically, what they're doing. And that's what we've done in our campaign, is they're not necessarily doing good, they're just fighting something that they don't like. Which, for our campaign is kinetics. It's...
But when you phrase it like that, it sounds wrong. They're not doing good, they just find something they don't like.
Well, considering...
Just think about that one for a second.
Yeah. I mean, considering their actions so far, I don't think anyone would say that they're good. Especially flashback to Ange pummeling a building with tombstones whilst the building's on fire and people are still in it, and just going potluck, break every window and blow the fucker up. So... And, you know,
A morally ambiguous choice.
somebody dropping a bathtub on a teenager.
A morally ambiguous choice.
So far, I wouldn't. It would have to be a very good argument to make me convinced that the actions that this team have done so far are good.
He was on fire. Good argument.
You just walked in and punched him in the face.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
So there is no good and bad system really in Mutants and Masterminds, and specifically for our campaign, I've said to all the players, I'm not saying either way, but obviously in our campaign you could be shunned by the other people. You know, if you do something that the others think are bad, we could have a bit of infighting, which will be interesting if that ever happens. I think it'll probably be pangolin at this rate.
Nobody in this team could take pangolin.
No, they really couldn't. But yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, if we need to fill a session, let's just do a battle royale. Everyone against pangolin. I reckon I could take them.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've had some really good questions. Thank you everybody who's come and asked questions. I hope you've come away from this understanding a bit more about Mutants and Masterminds. I mean, don't get me wrong, everything we've said, personally, I think this is an amazing system and is very open to essentially whatever you want to do. I think a lot of Mutants and Mastermind is in the hands of the actual person who's running the game. Basically, the Mutants and Masterminds, the rules are there in general, but it's not like Dungeons and Dragons where it's very tightly knitted for a certain theme and everything. Mutants and Masterminds is very open for everybody to do whatever, you know, to customize it to their own story basis. Because Mutants and Masterminds has got sections about, you know, whether you're heroes in the past, you know, in Victorian era, heroes in the world today, or even heroes in the future sort of thing. It is very customizable, which is really nice to see. Which means, you know, you get a good variation on campaigns from people to people. That's an interesting thought from Borga. Thank you. Angie's rules. Yes, Angie's rules say whatever she says goes. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for coming tonight. Thank you very much to our two raiders. Very much appreciated. I think that was probably the first time we actually got raided. Might be wrong. Probably wrong. I've been wrong before. So, yeah. So thank you to Elvin and thank you to Trolls for raiding us. Thank you for everyone who's been here. If you're not already, make sure you're in our Discord. If we have tickled your fancy with our interesting conversation with Mutants and Masterminds, like I said, please do drop into the Mutants and Masterminds on Discord.
Interesting, bit of a stretch.
Yeah. If I have tickled your fancy and you actually fancy playing, do send me a message on Discord and basically just give me an idea of what you're thinking of playing, and I will arrange at some point to sit down with you and we can go through and build characters, explain all these rules. Or if you fancy watching, we will be back tomorrow at 9 PM GMT here on this channel, and we will be streaming part 2 of episode 2 of Mutants and Masterminds.
I'll be putting on a funny voice the entire time.
He'll be putting on a funny voice.
It won't sound like this.
It probably won't sound like that. So yeah. So I hope you've all enjoyed it. And like I said, if you're enjoying this and you're new and you've liked the idea of this, we will be playing this tomorrow on our campaign here on Infinite Monkey Tales. And if you've missed any of it, you can check it out on our YouTube. Please go and subscribe. We're posting the videos up there. We're getting a bit fancier now with those videos as well, as people have commented that they, you know, that we've cut out the breaks and everything on the latest videos that are going out, so it'll be a nice watch. Podcast, if you're driving somewhere, you can listen to it, or in bed, or, you know, wherever. But yes, thank you very much, and yeah, I think that's it. Hopefully, we've not bored you. And you've
Thank you
learned
for watching.
Yes.
If you have any more questions, please post them 2 minutes after we stop the stream, because I'll annoy Andy about them.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. So, thank you very much, and good night, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye!
Bye.
Bye.